Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I wanted today to talk about the F8U-2, and the reason is because it's a very odd and interesting aircraft to play. On the outset, if you actually just kind of look at its base stats, it actually looks really good, and way better than it should be at 10.0. And, I personally thought going into this, it should be a lot higher BR than 10.0. I still actually kind of think it should be higher than 10.0, but nowhere near the level that I thought it was. Because when I looked at the stats of this thing, mainly the fact that it's very fast, and also at the same time, it has access to an RWR at 10.0, which is quite nice. Not a great one, but a decent one. It has access to 4 AIM-9Ds, which is incredibly good at 10.0. These are kind of long-range IR missiles, a lot longer than the Bs and the Cs. No, sorry, the Bs and the Es. And also, the only issue with them is that they have a caged seeker, which you can play around with the vehicle pretty well. It also has access to countermeasures, which once again, there's a bunch of vehicles around these BRs which don't have access to countermeasures, so it can stop missiles coming in. There's even one of its brethren, the Crusader for France, which doesn't have access to countermeasures, and that one is at 10.3. So the F8U-2, looking at it, just at those base stats, you're like, oh wow, like this thing must be really good, right? And, well, it is. But it has problems, and this is where the interesting area of War Thunder comes in, and where sometimes stats don't always tell the full story. The FAU2 has a crippling problem with it, and I feel like it could be fixed by Gaijin if they wanted to, but the real question is, do they want to or not, because technically it's based off historical areas. So, this vehicle, even though it's fast, even though it has good missiles, good guns, it has the ability to rip itself apart quite easily. So you have to take it very gingerly through turns. You have to not put too much power through the wings and the elevator, or the machine will fall apart. What you can do with this is you can go at 1,000 kilometers an hour, roll to 90 degrees one way, and then just put full elevator in, and it will just snap itself to bits. It's very similar to a lot of other vehicles that have this issue. The Sabres have this issue, the G91 has this issue, the A4s have this issue, and it was an absolute pain to find out that this vehicle has it. Now, according to some people I talked to, the later Crusaders don't have this problem in game, so it's not as huge of a deal. But since this one has that issue, it means that you are forced to play it in specific ways. Even though this thing can turn really well, a lot of the time if you try and force it through its ailerons, through its elevators, like you would something like an F5E, it's going to just fall apart on you. And therefore you have to go missile first, and then when done with the missiles, you have to slow down to a decent click, still not turn too hard until you get to specific speeds, and then engage the dogfight. So even though this one is one of the last, gunfighters in the world, or at least that's how it was kind of touted, the fact is, you still have to play it as a missile launcher first, and then go from there. Now, with the countermeasures and with the AIM-9Ds, if you are in a decent BR bracket, you can do really well. There were matches that I had where I had 6 player kills, 7 player kills, all just because of the missiles, and then finishing off people who were in dogfights. The vehicle itself is super powerful, but at the end of the day, you do have to make sure that you are holding the vehicle pretty well on itself, like basically making it so it doesn't kind of fall apart because of this overload issue. What I found is between about 800 and 700 kilometers an hour, the elevator on this thing goes from about 50% inflection to 100%. And this is completely an instructor thing, where basically it allows the elevator to go harder than it is. And with that shock to the system of the vehicle, if you are already pulling a decent amount of Gs, if you're at your maximum overload, if you continue to pull, what ends up happening is because the elevator pulls more, the wings just straight up fall off. And so this can even happen if you are going straight up, if you pull too hard going straight upwards. So you got to be super careful with this thing. The way that I actually played it for its modifications is I actually didn't go for the modifications that massively improved its engine first. I thought the engine itself was actually in a pretty good position, so I actually went for the AIM-9Bs, the fuselage repair, the airframe, and then the wings repair and the cover first. Usually what I would do is I would go for the engine, I would go for the compressor, because these things actually give you way more, and even the G-suit. These things give you way more performance than the other modifications that I just listed. But the simple thing is, this vehicle needs help with its structural strength, and stuff such as the airframe, overall construction strength increased by 10%. It also means that it isn't as fast around the place. I uninstalled the boosters. This is definitely a vehicle you want to uninstall the boosters on, because you don't need that extra, maneuverability. This vehicle actually is pretty maneuverable. The only vehicles you'll struggle against is stuff like Delta Wings, which you'll struggle against anyway, and then also stuff like the F5, which once again that new boosters is not going to help you with. And then also I just kind of skipped to the rockets until the end, because even if you get the rocket mods, the most amount of rockets you can get access to is 32 of them. And I suppose in a full system you can get access to 40, but 40 rockets is not going to do anything. This vehicle is supposed to be used in air battles. It's not supposed to be used in anything else. It's an air superiority vehicle. So yeah, it's kind of odd with this one, because you don't actually grind out the specific mods first. You actually grind out the actual strength mods, and then obviously the AIM-9Ds along with that, and then you can go for other stuff. I feel like you don't even have to go for the countermeasure modification straight away, because there's hardly any semi-active radar homing missiles at this BR. Those are much more at like 11.3 and then above, especially with the radars that people have. And so for me, even just having stock countermeasures with just a flare is easy to be able to do with most missiles, which the vast majority, like 99% of things you're going to run into have. So the vehicle itself, once you get the mods, is a monster, but in the back of your head, all the time you're playing it, you're worried about the wing rip, so you can't push it as hard as you want to because of that factor, and it just makes it a little bit more annoying. I just wish that it didn't have that factor. I wish you didn't have to worry about that, but you do, and that makes the F8U-2 kind of annoying to play. The matchmaking as well is quite a huge thing. So, for example, if you stick around at 10.393, you are a bully. You're able to do pretty much anything that you want. You're able to annihilate a lot of different vehicles and do really, really well. Once again, 5, 6, 7 kill games without really many issues, since a lot of vehicles don't have countermeasures. But the moment you get into those 11.0 10.0s or 10.7 9.7s, which is much more likely, you are more of a supportive fighter, especially since there's a lot of dogfighters, such as the F5s, which you will face, even though they're American, you will face them a lot because of how dominant America is in this bracket. So you have to be careful on what you're facing in these vehicles. But you can still do really well, and you can still do a fantastic job. You just got to be just slightly careful of what's kind of going on. My final stats in this were incredibly similar to the F5E. 42 battles played, 62% win rate, 88 air kills, and 26 deaths, which overall I would say was very good in the grand scheme of things. I had a good time playing it, and it was a nice little challenge to kind of manage it while also enjoying its very powerful factors like the AIM-9Ds. The AIM-9Ds and Gs on other vehicles are some of the best missiles against stuff like A-10s and Su-25s, because you can fire them from afar, like 3.5, 4 kilometers, and they'll still hit because they have a good motor on them. So they just give you that little bit of addition on top of other stuff. But yeah, if you're up for a challenge, and if you're really honestly up for a vehicle that is pretty unbalanced at its BR, when you actually face other stuff at its BR, the F8U-2 is a decent one to go for. It is only a rank 6, so you don't get full bonus to rank 8, but still a very nice vehicle to play. Just watch out for the wings and the elevator combo. They will screw you over sometimes. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.